Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is a continuation of Chapter 1 of Prince Dakota, Angel, and the Multiple Universe Guardians Induction. Now, before I get started with the rest of Chapter 1, or the rest of the prologue, I forgot to read the synopsis of the book. Prince Dakota was a normal 12-year-old boy from Indiana until he was granted superpowers from a lightning strike in 1983. He can now time travel and traverse space in multiple universes at faster than light speeds. During his travels, he meets an advanced civilization on the brink of collapse from a plague brought on by alien terrorists. He's able to cure the artificial plague, and the civilization grants him prince status. With help from supernatural beings, he creates a superpowered army called Multiple Universe Guardians. The army is made up of kids aged 10 to 21 years of age from many different species among many universes. The Guardians are granted the ability to travel to distant corners of any universe as easily as normal people walk through doorways. They will face many enemies along the way, but will battle fiercely to keep the balance of peace and chaos. I'll take a short break and I will continue. Hello and welcome back. I'm going to continue with Chapter 1 where we left off. Alec says he sees two angels standing over there, Bart said as he tilted his head towards where Alec was looking. Bart didn't dare point for fear the soldiers might be offended and start some trouble. But their father was a God-fearing man who always knew there was something special about their youngest boy. The father suspected Alec could communicate with ghosts because he knew things about deceased relatives at 2 years old that none of his siblings knew. Alec was now 4, and the father was a bit frightened that the boy could see angels. He suspected the Germans were going to kill them soon, and he decided to stay calm and let the end come. He only hoped it wouldn't be violent. Alec ignored them and kept his eyes locked on Oma and Dakota Angel. New paragraph. Be careful, Bart. There are strange things in this world that a lot of people will never understand. Alec doesn't make stuff up, and I believe him if he says he sees something no one else can see. And I have a feeling it has something to do with our predicament, the father said as he looked around at all the other nude men and boys while the Nazi soldiers prepared the showers. He had a sinking feeling those showers were not actually showers and was frightened what they might actually be. Okay, Dad, if you say so, Bart said with rolled eyes as he chuckled and shook his head. Oma, if I uncloaked, Bart would flip his lid as well as these soldiers, Dakota Angel said as he stifled giggles. The situation wasn't funny, but imagining the ruckus that would happen if he and Oma uncloaked would be an enormous brouhaha. With their supernatural powers, these soldiers wouldn't stand a chance. But that would come much later. They had other duties to perform for now. New paragraph. No doubt, but you'll be able to do that at a later date. The commandant of this camp will be pleasantly surprised when he finally meets you, Oma said as Alec's eyes widened slightly and he appeared to be focused on something behind them. Dakota Angel suddenly sensed another ascended being behind him, who he hadn't met before. Oma grinned because she knew exactly who it was. New paragraph. Well, hello, Your Majesty, a female voice called behind them. She had a loud mouth, and it was a good thing being cloaked and quantum phased also hid their voices. Dakota Angel glanced over his shoulder to see a tall black woman walking toward them with supreme confidence and a wide grin on her face. She was wearing a long navy gown with gold leaf ribbon designs sewn vertically from the neck all the way down to her ankles. The dress seemed to glow with golden sunlight, but then again, she was ascended, so it made sense her clothes would be glowing slightly. She had slightly glowing white hair that was made into a perfect perm. It went just past her shoulders. Shoulders. New paragraph. Well, I've never met you before, so I'm going to take a guess and say you're an ascended being since all the Jews in this camp are white, Dakota Angel said with a half grin on his face. The woman just grinned at him and his antics. Well, I'm an ultra's ascended being, actually, the woman said in an improper ghetto slang. My grandmother was a school teacher. She would slap my lips off my face if I talk like you do and then take a belt to my butt, Dakota Angel said, unable to stifle giggles. Indeedy she would, the woman said, continuing to improperly pronounce words. Dakota, May I introduce Miss Medea? That is her nickname. Her real name is Mabel Simone. It is Simmons in other universes, Alma said as she glanced at Medea. And you, of course, already know who Dakota is, she added with a half grin. I do. Thank you, Miss Alma, Medea said as she grinned sweetly at her. So, Medea, how old are you? Dakota Angel asked as he calmly folded his hands while he smirked at her. Oh, well, I'm not as old as Alma here. I'd be 50 billion years old my next birthday. I lived long ago in my universe. I lived to be 95 years old. Just before I croaked, Alma asked me if I wanted to ascend and that she'd help me. But my entire body didn't ascend, just part, Medea said as she appeared to get more serious. It was taking all of Dakota Angel's strength not to bust into hysterics at listening to Medea's ghetto language. She was ultra ascended and still talked like she did when she was alive in Atlanta, Georgia. She obviously didn't care how she talked now that she was ascended, and according to Oma, she had that right. New paragraph. So, it's safe to assume you've been around the block a few times, Dakota Angel said as he struggled to keep a smirk off his face. But she simply smirked back. Yeah, you a typical smart-ass teenager. Hormones, superpower, and all, Medea said as she chuckled heartily. Indeed I am, and the bullies in my school quiver in their boots when I'm around. Since we're busy, I'll tell you later what I did to two boys I caught bullying another boy, Dakota Angel said with a wry grin. Okay, I'm going to hold you to that, Medea said with a half grin. She knew the story would be good and couldn't wait to hear about a superhuman teen that put a beating on two school bullies. Oh, by the way, I'm not a prince yet. The people in my flying city voted, but the council still has yet to coronate me their prince and future leader, Dakota Angel reminded her, but she was unfazed. Oh, I knows that. I just wanted to hear myself says it. You gonna make a good prince. Girls and boys gonna be chasing you behind, Medea said as she chuckled again. Dakota Angel simply rolled his eyes and grinned at her antics. They noticed the soldiers were starting to direct the prisoners to head into the showers. Time was short. New paragraph. Okay, Dakota, we need to get started. Medea is going to assist you while you help these people. But for you, it won't take long since you can time travel. The 11 million people weren't all killed on the same day. You will have to travel to the different camps to rescue people from now until the end of the war in Europe. You will need to choose 50,000 kids to be ascended mugs that will protect you and your soldiers while on missions, Oma said. 50,000? Dakota Angel asked with a stupefied look. Yes, you will initially start out with 5,000 mugs, but as they grow older and marry, their children will be given the opportunity to be inducted into the league. The maximum number of mugs will be set at 25,000. Each mug will have 2 ascended guardians watching over them to prevent death. They will have their guardians assigned to them, but you will get to choose yours personally. I have got a feeling you already know one you have in mind, Oma said with a wry smirk. New paragraph. Yes, Jula, the girl I saw when I was in a coma after my lightning strike, Dakota Angel said, as if he was eager to help the girl he saw in that heavenly place. She'd been a Jewish girl that had been violently killed in a Nazi death camp. He was told he'd never be able to help save her from death, but Oma never said Jula couldn't be an ascended guardian. If I may make some suggestions for your second guardian, Medea said. Certainly, Prince Dakota said as they briefly locked eyes. I'm going to take a short break and then I'll continue. Do you remember Emmett Till from your history books? Medea asked as her features softened. She indeed remembered the young African-American teen murdered in the late 50s by white men who thought he whistled at a white woman who indeed may have just had a speech impediment. New paragraph. Yes, I've heard of him. He has a counterpart in another universe who has been identified as a mug candidate. The counterpart is named Emmanuel Times. They have different names in other universes. Is he from your universe? Yes. I was just a toddler when he was murdered, but I remember my mother telling me about him when I was older. But I remember seeing her cry once when I was little. She was watching TV at the time. I didn't understand because I had never seen her cry, but I asked her about it one day when I was about 8, and she told me the story. I couldn't understand how a bunch of adult men could take the life of an innocent teenager, Medea said with a furrowed brow. Her language seemed to get better when she talked about something that really resonated with her soul. Well, it's my understanding that I'm going to be rescuing Emmanuel just before he's murdered. I'm going to show those murderous punks who's boss. I'm going to make sure the Pentagon and the President know my plan, since I have to inform them when a mug is identified from a modern era. That is going to be fun, Dakota Angel said as he lightly pounded a fist into his other hand. Indeed, but for now, we will take care of these people today. Do you remember what you need to do? Oma asked. Yes, upon each person's death, I'm to extract their entire brain stem, spinal cord, and all the nerves of the nervous system. It's to be turned into pure energy, the molecular pattern saved in a buffer, and then transported to the habitable moon in this new star system 30 light years away. All the people will be given new alien bodies, Dakota Angel said as he grinned. Oma and Medea knew he was going to enjoy the next actions. So, when you says alien bodies, Medea asked with a wry grin. They're no longer going to be human. Their nervous system will be human, but their bodies will be based on a cross between humans and an alien race I've met with feline ancestry. I'm giving them fluffy tails, short fur, and pointed furry ears. My friend Daryl helped me create them. There are already some of them on the moon. I rescued the first inhabitants from the people that died on the Titanic in this universe, Dakota Angel said as he continued grinning. Medea knew he'd enjoyed saving souls from the Titanic. When did you build that star system? Last month, but don't forget, it's been there 450 years, Dakota Angel said as Medea finished. Oh, right, you time travel, Medea said as she rolled her eyes at forgetting. She may be ascended, but they were not perfect beings. They were the first mass accident victims I've ever saved after death and sent to another planet. Their bodies died, but I extracted their nervous systems and gave them new bodies and a new planet to live on to start over. That is one secret people will never know about victims of mass accidents where bodies are never recovered. New paragraph. And if their bodies is recovered, if they be examined, doctors will undoubtedly wonder how their brains and nervous system completely disappear without so much as one cut on their bodies, Medea said as she grinned widely. She would indeed enjoy helping out with this omnipotent action. Yes, ma'am. Okay, let us get to work. Dakota, I will take care of helping Jula ascend. After you both finish here today, you can head to Image Universe and take care of him. Once you have selected all the ascended mugs, they will assist you with finding and recruiting your first soldiers. Once they are trained, your new soldiers will then help you find the rest of your mugs, Alma said. Dakota Angel nodded his understanding as the boys and men began to file into the large rectangular metal buildings where they were going to be killed. There were several buildings on this type on the property, and many people were going to be simultaneously, genocidally murdered. New paragraph. Okay, Your Majesty, you want the women and boys or the men? God, you want the women and girls or the men and boys? Medea asked as she smirked at him. He didn't care either way, but he wasn't in the mood to see a bunch of dead toddlers, babies, girls, and pregnant women from cyanide gas. He decided on the opposite. I'll take the men and boys. I've seen enough dead bodies already from disasters I've witnessed, and I remember not to reveal myself to the Nazis until all the people are saved. I'm going to make sure they notice one of the last dead has a hole in the head. Their doctors will undoubtedly want to examine the dead and will discover missing brains. I can't wait to see the look on their faces, Dakota Angel said as Alec and his family began walking away. The boy looked at him as he walked away. Dakota waved at him again, and Alec waved back. He gave the boy a half grin and nodded to let him know everything would be okay. Alec nodded back with a somber look on his face and then turned to face forward as he and his family headed to their deaths. New paragraph. I bet you can't, Medea said with a chuckle as she turned and headed to the girls' side of the camp. Since she was ascended, she simply flashed away in a sparkle of heavily bright light and then suddenly appeared at the other end of the camp. Dakota Angel noticed Alec glanced over his shoulder and was wide-eyed as he saw Medea disappear as if by magic. He grinned because he knew something special was about to happen to him, his family, and the other Jewish prisoners in the camp. The Nazis would never notice the prisoners' brains were missing because the dead bodies would look normal. Once all the men and boys were stuffed inside the building and the door secured, additional soldiers came up wearing protective gas masks. They had large cans, similar to coffee tins, that had a skull and crossbones on the sides. 2 German words were written on the can, but Dakota could read the language. They said cyanide tabs. He watched as they opened small side doors and began dumping the tabs inside while other soldiers turned valves to run water into the tanks with the tabs. They would react with the water to create cyanide gas. New paragraph. And Dakota, remember to block your telepathy from outside emotions while they are in those gas chambers. The minds of all those frightened men, women, boys, girls, and babies will overwhelm your senses as they choke on that gas. We don't need you breaking down and going ballistic on these soldiers. Then our mission will be compromised and we will have to start over again, Omo warned him. Oh, right, Dakota Angel said as he briefly closed his eyes and put up a temporary barrier to block out emotions from the teens, preteens, and adults, and telepathic communication from the younger children and babies. Scene change. I will take another break and then continue with the chapter. Hello and welcome back. New scene. A few minutes later. Bart stood inside a dimly lit building as he and his brothers and father waited on the showers to be turned on. There were shower heads in the room they were in, but not one drop of water was yet coming out. They were on a floor made of timber, and he guessed the water would simply drain through the slits in the wooden boards. There were so many of them in there that he had no clue how they were supposed to shower decently. They were standing nearly side by side, and he was unable to avoid touching anyone. He suddenly heard a weird clumping noise, a squeaking sound, as they heard small doors shut, and then running water, but no one was coming out of the shower heads. He suddenly noticed white gas clouds beginning to billow from pipes with screens somewhere near the walls. His eyes widened as he remembered what a science teacher told him once about a certain gas used to execute death row inmates in gas chambers. New paragraph. No! Bart cried as his father looked at him. He already felt the sting of the gas in his lungs, and it made breathing difficult and his eyes water. It's okay, son. I'm certain we'll be okay, his father said with tears in his eyes as he began coughing and gagging from the gas. What's that cloudy stuff? It make my chest hurt, Alec cried as tears ran down his cheeks. His father grabbed all three of his sons and hugged them as long as he could until he passed out from lack of oxygen. Alec was suddenly very dizzy, and his head began spinning. He suddenly felt as if he was floating, and then his vision and hearing began to dim. Even the burning in his lungs was swiftly fading, and he knew he'd never see his mother and sisters again, or so he thought. Everything went black, and then poof, poof. Alec's eyes shot open, and he felt himself laying on a bed. He sat up and grinned as he saw that same black boy grinning while he knelt down next to him. They were in a soft grassy field. He hadn't been on a bed. He'd been laying on thick bluish-green grass on his back. His father and brothers were with him, and they looked very different from when they were in that gassy shower. Another boy the same age as Alex stood up, and he gasped as he realized that other boy had a long fluffy tail with blue and yellow fur on his body. And he had feline features. Alec glanced at his hands and saw he suddenly had the same type of fur. He felt behind his back, and he had a tail with short fur. New paragraph. What the hell? Alec yelped loudly as Bart snorted awake and sat up. Alec was shocked. He was able to effortlessly control the tail and move it around as though he had it his whole young life. Hi, Alec. My name is Dakota Angel, and I'm a superhuman from another universe. That'll be explained later, but for now, very powerful beings allowed me to save you and your family from the Nazis so you could start over on a new world, Dakota Angel said as he helped Alex stand. The field was beautiful, and there were flowers of every color in the rainbow glowing in that field. And another shocker, there was a large planetary body in the sky as if the world they were on orbited it. The gas giant planet had colorful cloud bands swirling around it. The large star of the sky glowed with a bluish-white hue. It was nothing like he'd ever seen before. New paragraph. A new world? Bart asked with wide eyes as he stood and looked at Dakota Angel. He was certain this black boy is the one Alex said he saw when they were in that death camp. Bart looked around and saw what looked like a few hundred men and boys in that vast field. And they were no longer nude. They all wore the same opaque white gowns, which went down to their ankles. They had on pure white cotton slippers with very comfortable soles. He'd never felt slippers this comfortable in his life. They were almost heavenly. New paragraph. Are we in heaven, Walter? Bart's other brother asked. No. You're on a habitable moon orbiting a gas giant in another star system 30 light years from Earth. Dakota Angel said. Bart, his brothers, and other people nearby gasped as they processed the asinine words they had just been told by a grinning African-American boy who was wearing an African ceremonial gown. It was navy blue with hints of rainbow colors and gold lace vertically down the front. Dakota was wearing the nicest dark blue leather dress shoes any of them had ever seen in their lives. New paragraph. Why do we look like cats? Walter asked as he grinned at Dakota Angel. Several men and boys were starting to gather around as Dakota talked to them. They knew he was special and couldn't wait to see what lay ahead for them. Because that's what I wanted you to look like. I wanted to do away with the human form, and I created something new with the help of a friend. His name is Daryl, and you'll meet him one day. Every single one of you has the same color fur, but your faces are unique, and you'll recognize all your family. But on this world, everyone who is sitting here to start over will have the same color, skin, and fur. I'm sick and tired of racial and religious bias, and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'll explain more later, and some more other people here will assist you with settling in. For now, I'm going to reunite all of you with your sisters, mothers, and other family members. Dakota Angel said as he gestured at another corner of the vast field. Alec gasped with happiness as he saw his sisters and mother heading toward them. He ran as fast as he could to hug his sisters and mother. Other women and girls were heading to other men and boys. Who are the other people that'll help us? Walter asked as he paused while his brothers and father greeted his mother and sisters. They're folks I saved from the Titanic after they died. They'll explain everything to you. I have to leave to take care of some things. Go ahead and be with your family, but know this. No one will ever harm you again like those Nazis did. You'll be protected on this world, and that's a promise. Dakota Angel said as he suddenly flashed away in a sparkle of bluish white light. Alec had been watching them and gasped with wide-eyed shock as Dakota disappeared. Walter was unable to keep a grin off his face at what he had just witnessed. His little sister ran up and hugged him while her tail fluttered in the air. He was again shocked to hear his sister purring like a typical house cat while she hugged him. She was indeed happy to see him again. I can't wait to see Dakota again, Walter said as he stifled giggles. What you laughing at? His sister asked as she grinned at Walter. They were now biped felines, whiskers and all, and he was in wide-eyed shock as he looked up and saw the gas giant in the sky with blue, yellow, and orange ribbons of clouds. And it appeared a second habitable moon was starting to appear from behind the gas giant. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen in his life. He suddenly wondered how far away they were from that giant. Is that the moon? Alec asked, suddenly standing next to them as he pointed at the giant. No, I think we are on a moon, one that can support life, Walter said to an astonished Alec. The giant resembled Jupiter, except it had its own distinct cloud bands. Indeed we are, Alec. Indeed we are, their father said with a grin as he looked up at it. Their father was an astronomer at a local university before he'd been arrested by the Nazis. What he saw was a dream of a lifetime. The big bluish white spot swirling at the gas giant's equator was even more fascinating. Everyone, thank you for joining me for Prince Dakota Angel and the Multiple Universe Guardians induction for the prologue. Chapter 1 will be the next read. It's Chapter 1, Cracked Up and Detoxified Prince. Everyone have a nice day, and I'll see you later. Take care.